All right, welcome to StemPaths. StemPaths is where students unpack papers, study paths, and the people behind them. Today, our student hosts are Savannah and David, and they're going to interview Caitlin Brett here on her paper, Spatiotemporal Responses to a Rural Highway by 4 Mammal Species. I think we'll have a great show today, so why don't I let you guys introduce yourselves, your background, your major a little bit, and then give us a quick rundown on the paper and introduce our guest.
My name's Savannah Perry. I'm a senior at Sul Ross, and I am majoring in natural resource management with a concentration of conservation biology.
My name is David Wellborn. I'm also a senior at Sul Ross State University, natural resource management program, also with a focus on conservation biology. And the paper that we have chosen that you've written is Spatiotemporal Responses to a Rural Highway by 4 Mammal Species. The primary objective of the study, correct me if I'm wrong, was to quantify the spatiotemporal extent of the road effect zone for 4 South Texas mammal species by quantifying how proximity to FN 106 may alter species detections across the study area and the temporal distribution of target species activity across a day-night cycle. The results, each species was dispersed evenly among the area. Bobcats and coyotes have been seen coming out more at night to utilize roadkills. Skunks and white-tailed deer avoid the road during the daytime and are wary of the road at night. And white-tailed deer have the highest numbers of mammal selected for the study, thus having more roadside mortalities than other species. Is there anything that we might have missed in our very, very quick summary?
No, that's great. I'll say it's a great choice for one of my papers because it's the only one I have yet to publish as a first author. So 1 out of 1. But we saw kind of this kind of mixed reaction towards proximity to the road when we looked at that spatial distribution of animal activity versus the temporal. So I think you said it about correctly that the two carnivore or the two arcanid and arfelid that we were able to study seemed to be somewhat attracted maybe spatially to the road, but they were seen having slightly more activity in those areas near the road at night and on a more nocturnal cycle. And our white-tailed deer had a really strong temporal response, and then our skunks were a little less definitive. They seem maybe oblivious. It's the right word, but a little bit weaker of an effect with our striped skunks.
No, go ahead, guys.
I was going to say something that I really liked about your paper. Your graphs and your tables, they're clear, concise, aesthetically pleasing. It really made the paper very, very easy to follow along and understand. So props to that.
Glad to hear it. Spent lots of time on those.
Yeah. And I actually found the whole, your whole project really interesting. I went and watched your master's thesis defense, and the scope of the project and how many sub-projects you had is just amazing to me. So.
Yeah, I will say I have a lot of people to thank as far as, the project funding and the effort goes. I was in a cohort of, there were 2 students who joined at the same time as I did, and several others working on this kind of road corridor project and others studying other road corridors in the area. So, the Kline lab deserves a big shout out for all of the field work and all the undergrads who helped us sort through photos. And of course, all the researchers on my paper as well. So we had collaboration with U.S. Fish and Wildlife in the southern region, as well as the Texas Department of Transportation, that really made all this possible as far as funding goes. So,
Are you originally from Texas?
Not originally. I'm from, if you can tell from the hat, Northeast Ohio. But I moved down to Texas back in 2020, I believe, right in the midst of COVID, or just kind of just post shutdowns really, to start grad school down there. And so I was there for 2.5 years.
Okay.
I was working and going to school down there. So,
did COVID affect how you did your research or how you studied?
Oh gosh. certainly, but maybe a little less so, since we did have a lot of opportunities for field work where we could kind of social distance as we did it. I remember for a while we drove road mortality surveys as part of, the overall project objectives and methods. And for a while we were driving 2 separate trucks to do road mortality surveys, since we wanted to make sure, folks were social distancing and separate. And so that was kind of a pain in the butt for a while there. But otherwise, we figured it out. We got by. Yeah.
Savannah, what were some of your takes on the paper?
I really liked it because it was in depth of everything that was going on. It wasn't just like a single graph that explained something happening over one species. Everything was all correlated pretty well. And then I noticed you involved a little part about ocelots, even though that it wasn't like a main portion of your study, it was mentioned, and I thought that was really cool. I have a interest in those, but one thing that really caught my interest, I guess, would have been the graphs as well. I really liked them too, but I'm not really like into the graphs, but I don't know how to word that really, but I liked them, but they're not like something I'm good at understanding, but I liked them. And then the information in the article wasn't too hard to understand. It was very easy to digest.
Good, yeah. I think it's hopefully something. I mean, yeah, something that I think it's almost as valuable as like having good research is like being able to communicate it well. So I don't know, kind of being like a translator, I think is. Oh, hang on just a second.
Okay, cool. We'll keep on carrying on then.
So just because we kind of forgot to mention, you're currently with North Carolina Wildlife, right?
Yeah, that's right. I actually started in January. I've been working here in North Carolina for about 3 years now, but I just started with the state agency, so the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, as the Furbearer Biologist for the state. So,
Very, very cool. And you did the research as part of UT Rio Grande Valley, right?
yeah, that's right. So I was down in Brownsville. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure we got those things out of the way. So people are like, who is this strange person?
Who gives her the right to talk about this paper?
Yeah, she wrote a paper? What?
Big deal, yeah.
All right. Keep going, guys. Let's keep rolling.
How did you come across this project in the first place? What brought you to South Texas doing this research?
Yeah, so I was in the process of I was doing seasonal technician work, just like building up my kind of hands-on experience and resume and in wildlife biology and research, and was trying to get back to grad school since way back when originally I did not study wildlife in undergrad, and so for me grad school was a really important step to kind of shore up my educational background. And so I was looking into grad school programs, and this one popped up on the Texas A&M job board, like we all use to search around for that sort of thing. And it seemed at the time it was just like the right fit, the right kind of research interests. My undergrad degree was in the College of Engineering, actually, in landscape architecture, and for me the idea behind that was to be able to work on these large scale habitat connectivity projects. I thought that would be really cool. And I ended up working in that field for about 3 years out of school, 4 years really. And, the ideas of what you want to study in school didn't quite match up with how it was in the workforce. And so, anyway, so yeah, I was kind of pivoting back towards grad school, trying to get that wildlife education. And, because it's a road ecology project this is a road ecology project, it seemed like it lined up well with that, almost that background, that original idea that, I wanted to work on habitat connectivity and conservation angled projects. And, this seemed like actually a really good match for me specifically. And, luckily I interviewed and got in, and there was actually kind of I think what prompted this position to open up and for the funding to come to that particular lab was that there was like a tropical storm or hurricane down in Cameron County. And, I think part of it, I might be misremembering slightly, but I think it was like Fish and Wildlife was managing these cameras, and they realized in the process of having to manage everything during this storm that, actually they could use some additional help with maintaining so many cameras along this road corridor. And so it kind of got funding got secured to have a couple grad students come in and manage the cameras along this roadside and start doing different types of analyses with that data. So that's how mine and a few other folks' positions came about in the lab. And so it was kind of cool. We each took like a different piece of the potential analysis. It kind of each took our own chunk of data to work with. But there's honestly certainly plenty of more analysis that we could have done, I think, with with all the data you get from a big camera array like that.
I'm always a big fan myself of how they kind of will take a big idea project and then chop it up into manageable little bits. How hard did you have to fight for your little bit?
Yeah, I mean, mine actually aligned with. I think I got what I wanted out of it. I wanted to do more field work, more field and less computer work, and for my particular project, I know you read the paper and saw, but there's this sort of roadside camera array that we had set up to monitor activity at the crossing structures themselves, and that was kind of part of like the basic funding, basic requirements of the project contract. But then my project specifically was adding more of these cameras in the surrounding habitat so that we could make like a more rigorous or more accurate comparison of what activity looked like at the crossings versus the surrounding habitat as like a baseline for comparison. So yeah, it was maybe I was regretting that at some point while crawling around through thorn scrub to figure out where to put these 10 cameras. But I think I liked and appreciated the kind of slice of data that I got to work with and also acquire more of. But
How long was your field season?
pretty much the whole 2 years, really. I mean, we were maintaining cameras constantly for the roadside array cameras, and in addition to doing, road mortality surveys every week. And I think the dedicated field season for my cameras specifically was about 10 months. But really, all 2 years I was down there, we were doing some type of field work or helping out with some sort of stuff, just to keep the ball rolling on all these cameras. Yeah.
What were the most challenging moments you had working on this project?
Oh, geez. I mean, besides I'd say like the mental stress of grad school, you're putting everything into this one project, and I think that's what's kind of great about grad school is that it really does. I feel like most students like really take ownership of the work they're doing and the field work and the analysis that they're doing. But it also means for a lot of us who are perfectionists that there's like a lot at stake there. Like it's your work, you want it to be as best as possible, and yeah, that comes with a lot of just stress, and like you're kind of always thinking about the work you're doing, which is good and bad, But I think more specifically, I'm trying to think of like some fun. We did have alligators where we were working, and there were definitely. So we had a few, I think, least favorite camera sites to check. We had 8 or 9 crossings on the road. One of them was called Airport, I remember, and that crossing was just like always flooded, questionably full of gators, sometimes full of wasps in the camera boxes themselves. Like there were lots of like challenges in the field, I'll say, as far as weather and wildlife. I remember for a while we had like 3 back-to-back instances where people almost like, came up on some feral hogs and spooked them out of an area. And so there were some challenges in the field.
What are some things that you really enjoyed about it?
Oh yeah. There's plenty more of those. I mean, not being from South Texas or from Texas even, I loved working in that area. It was like everything was new to me, and it just felt so like I was learning new plant species, new bird species, like all the time. And I I don't know, I kind of miss that. I work somewhere now where, yeah, there's new things. It's a little bit closer to where I grew up and a little closer to home. And so it's like, it's much more familiar. But that was like one of the favorite things I remember about the project and about living down in Brownsville. It's just like, I don't know, being able to learn so much about the natural environment and the culture and like everything is so novel that it's like really exciting to be a part of. But
How did this study compare to other studies that you've worked on?
Like I'm trying to think of.
I mean, what if we maybe transition to some of the studies you're working on now versus your graduate study? Obviously, you mentioned already how you were focusing hyper focused almost on one project as a graduate student versus, I don't know, how does it work now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because comparing it to other projects is tricky. Because I feel like your grad student work is a little bit different with just how dedicated you can be to that one project or those like basic objectives. And even the project actually I worked on between grad school and now was the Coastal Bear project up here in North Carolina. And I remember when I first started on the Coastal Bear project, this was a 37 county area we were trying to survey to get hair samples collected from this bear population in coastal North Carolina. And so like huge study area, we were trying to set up about 1,300 hair snares to these barbed wire corrals. But of course, this wasn't just me. This was a whole team of people. But I just remember when we started this project, I drew out, I had a map of like my grad student work, with my 36 cameras along a single road corridor. And I drew out a map of what that study area looked like. And I compared it to that 37 county area with our 1,300 hair snares. And I don't know how to say this without using my French or four-letter words, but I was overwhelmed by how much bigger this project was going to be compared to my grad school work. And that 36 camera array suddenly seemed very small compared to what we were working with then. I think the biggest difference is like you have to learn how to delegate work if you're leading a team or collaborate with other people. If you're working with peers, it's just like, it's no longer just, and not that grad school was totally a singular effort. Like I mentioned, there's lots of collaborators in the mix and lots of other students working. But, as far as scaling up from that project to what I've been working on more recently, it's like, you're not going to be able to do it alone. And I don't know, it's good and bad. Like it's a struggle because you lose, control and you can't always account for what every single person is doing on the project. And that's good and bad because then, it also, I think, makes you communicate better with other people. And also like it does take, I think, a little bit of the pressure off of you as an individual. It changes the mindset to like, no, we're a whole team. We're all working on this. And you have to kind of just like trust that other people will have the same high standards that you do for fieldwork and data collection and analysis and all that. So I think that was the biggest kind of mindset shift between that project and more recent ones. And now as, I'm a biologist for the state, and even more so, it's like I kind of help with projects. I oversee projects. Some I'm more involved with than others, but it's even more so having to sort of collaborate and communicate with other folks to make sure that, just the most important research is getting done and getting done well. So, does that kind of answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe. That was wonderful.
Okay.
How did you get to North Carolina?
Weirdly, I drove through Colorado, which is not the recommended way. I went to visit a friend actually for a few months after wrapping up my thesis, and then went to. Anyways, I graduated fall of 2022, and then actually, the way that I found this job was, or sorry, not this job, but the previous job on the Coastal Bear project. was partially through the Texas A&M, the job search. I'm sure, are you guys familiar with like the job board? I don't know if you guys have had to do seasonal work yet through, but yeah, like Texas A&M is always posting grad positions and permanent positions and things. And so the coastal bear research assistant role had popped up on a job board, but then really what got me to apply was that there was kind of a random connection at a conference. I was at, National TWS back in 2022 in Spokane. And I'm not like a big networker. That's never been a strong suit of mine. But
networking's always a challenge. Always a challenge.
It's so hard. And it's like reframing it as just like kind of being friendly and talking to people you enjoy talking to. That's not so hard, right? But, really angling for a job or really trying to I've never been good at like the self-promotion thing. But, what happened at this conference was I think I was talking to someone in line for coffee in the morning, and we were chatting, and it turned out she worked at one of the labs that was on this project that I had been on the fence about applying to. It was, advertised as the Coastal Bear Project was a collaboration between Mississippi State and North Carolina State Universities. And I was like, I don't know if that's where, I don't know if I want to move to Mississippi. And I kind of talked to her, and she was like, no, I think you'd be based in North Carolina. And I was like, okay, maybe. So I was like on the fence, but then she she introduced me to the master's student who I would be working with. She introduced me to one of the PIs on the project. And after that, I was like, oh, these people are cool. Like, I want to work with them. And so it was just like what I needed to tip me over into like actually applying. And, it probably didn't tip the scales that much, but it helped, I think, in the interview even to be like, oh, hey, like we've met before. It wasn't a totally fresh conversation. And yeah, that's what got me to North Carolina. Long story short.
What is your position as a fur bearer now? What exactly do you do?
It changes every day. So now I work for the state. I oversee, research and management for 17 different species. Whenever people are sometimes like, what is a fur bearer to begin with? That's like the first hurdle, I think, to understanding what my job is. And fur bearer is just like kind of this maybe slightly historic term, but like kind of an umbrella term for any species that you can trap for fur. Plus, in our case, we also include under the Furbearer Biologist armadillos, which famously don't really have much of a fur coat. But so there's 17 species. It's mostly, I'd say, mesocarnivores, plus our 4 larger rodent species. I could name them. Sometimes I like to see if people can guess what all of my species are. But so, like otters, muskrat, beaver, nutria, coyotes and bobcats and foxes, skunks, weasels, armadillos, raccoons, possums. I think that kind of hits the big ones, but bear is not in there. Yeah. So, they actually, no, it used to be part of the job, but when my boss got promoted, so my predecessor, Kline, she was the black bear and Furbearer Biologist for the state, which I cannot imagine because my job seems like plenty. She was doing my job plus managing black bears in a state with quite a few black bears. But since she got promoted, they've split the job into 2. So we now have a dedicated black bear biologist and a dedicated Furbearer Biologist.
I know we here at Sul Ross, we have the Borderlands Research Institute, and they do a whole bunch of different big animal game, and we got a bear project of our own here. Yeah. And I know David's been involved in a bunch of stuff. Savannah, have you been involved in any of that relates yet?
No, I haven't.
You haven't gotten into that yet.
No.
You're holding out on them.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I know both of them are very thrilled about different aspects of more that resource management. And sometimes we don't even think, do we even think really about that fur bearing thing out here in West Texas as much? Do you guys think?
It's mostly game management.
Yeah, game management, yeah.
We do have some conservation, like the bears, they're a threatened species here in Texas. So a lot of it's not, some of it's on management, human wildlife management, but a lot of it's trying to find out how they're crossing over from Mexico and what's happening to their population and what we can expect in the future. Whereas we have a lot of the game animals like ungulates and stuff we can hunt. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, I've kind of a mix. Like some of my species are, game and fur bearers, or are there game species that are they're species that you can hunt and or trap. But yeah, it's kind of odd. Like, different states will split it up differently or assign different species to different biologists. And fur bearers sometimes catches some weird ones, like our armadillos are. I know in some states, probably in Texas, I think you guys have a mammal or a mammal biologist for the state instead of a Furbearer Biologist, right? I think I want to say, that they cover mountain lions there, and a few other states, mountain lions fall under the Furbearer role or under that biologist kind of purview. But
the classification of mountain lions
cool
here,
species out there.
Yeah, the classification of mountain lions here in Texas has been a very precarious thing. I don't know if you've ever noted for how long, do you know, Savannah, how long they were considered varmints or anything like that?
I don't know like all of the dates and stuff like that, but I just know it's a super controversial topic. Like people think that their numbers are threatened, and then there's some that people think that they shouldn't be here, and then there's more that's like, oh, we need to protect them, and then there's like, don't trap them, don't hunt them, and everybody has so many different opinions.
And and how does that affect, one of your roles in the government or the field government, state biology kind of field?
Yeah. Fur bearers inspire lots of strong reactions across the board. Like, and that's fair. And the diversity of opinions is like almost as much as like the diversity of species on that list of 17, right? It's everything from our weasels and our spotted skunks and some pretty rare, not rare, but like less commonly found species, right? And then it goes all the way up to something like a raccoon that you can find pretty much ever in the state, anywhere where you have a nice creek or a trash can around. So yeah, there's a lot of different opinions on how to manage those species across that spectrum of abundance. And it makes it, and this is kind of new for me, going from, bears were a little more similar, right? You can hunt bears in North Carolina, and it's really valuable as a game species here. That industry is really strong. But going from working with ocelots down in Texas, or kind of a project inspired by ocelots, going from a species where there's probably 100 left in the United States to species where they're a little bit less, each individual is a little bit less precious as far as genetic diversity goes, or management goes, and it's a blessing and a curse, the the diversity of opinions.
Are there any controversial mammals there in North Carolina?
I would say the most, and I don't know if totally controversial is like exactly the right word, but I think the current kind of hot topic is management of fur bearers and mesocarnivores that potentially predate on like turkey nests or quail nests. There's certainly some concern about those bird populations, and so there's a lot of push, especially in the Southeast, I think, to really heavily manage and potentially reduce those populations of potential species that are potential nest predators. And so I would say that's the one that we get some of the strongest opinions and reactions to research and management on. But armadillos are interesting, but maybe not quite controversial, but they're definitely newer, and people have lots of questions about their introduction and their spread across the state. They've naturally been pushing north from down by you guys way back in, I think, the 1850s is when they first popped up in Texas, and just have slowly been marching their way up north ever since. And so they're kind of a new one in the state that we get a lot of questions on, but not quite the strongest opinions yet. But like going back to, you mentioned how mountain lions used to be, or maybe I don't totally know either if they're still how they're classified in Texas, but I think the fur bearer list of species a lot of times gets grouped in with the nuisance or the varmint species, and I understand where people are coming from with that, but I think it's also really important to like respect these species as a resource, from the trapping and hunting and harvest angle, but also just, for their own sake as species that are, only really considered nuisance or varmints because of our own kind of socially applied values on what is useful in an ecosystem versus what is not. But not to get too philosophical on that on that front. But
Savannah, did you have a question? It looked like you had one that popped up.
What caused or what categorizes an armadillo as a fur bearer?
I think it was that my boss said, "I'll take them," when she was the Furbearer Biologist. It was, it's less so that they have any value as a fur-bearing species, but that they kind of didn't fit into any of our other biologists' roles or purview. So yeah, they're kind of just a misfit that we adopted as far as management goes. You can trap and hunt them, so they kind of fit better in our department than in others. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can start with a couple of our last little wrap-up questions maybe and get into some of those. So the first one I'm going to ask you is what's one piece of advice you'd give way back to, hope maybe not that way back, I don't want to make assumptions here, to your undergrad self?
Ooh. Part of me does wish that I had found this field sooner, which you guys are already on the right track, right? You're in a department in a program that, in my opinion, is pointing you towards a really cool and really rewarding career path. And I think I had the right idea in undergrad. It was just, I guess I wish I'd gotten a little bit more, more breadth of experience actually doing the work and being in the field before, making that decision to spend 4 years studying a particular thing. But, on the other hand, I think kind of going through this very winding, tortuous path to get where I am, I think it's given me a real appreciation for where I'm at and where I've landed. And I think knowing kind of the ins and outs of not just one career, but kind of multiple potential careers, and just kind of having a diversity of work experience, I think it's made me really appreciate that I've kind of I feel like I've found the right place for me, and that helps a lot when you're doing work that's it's not always easy or immediately rewarding, but it feels like the right fit. Like I feel like I'm in the right place. So yeah.
You actually touched on something in there that I was a little curious about, because you were talking about all these different paths, and that's actually one of the next questions is kind of if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? Where would you be? Who would you be?
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I've tried a lot of stuff. Like I've kind of figured out what I don't want to do.
What you don't want is just as important as what you do want.
Yeah. One of the things I always liked was, and I get kind of a insight into this because my brother and sister-in-law own a farm now, and that sort of I don't know, some sort of farming or some sort of you get to do so much when you're a farmer, and when you're you're kind of just problem solving on the job. And in the course of the tech cycle, seasonal job work, I ended up working on a couple different farms in that process, and it's kind of just a different kind of field work. It's a different kind of problem solving. So, and even in some cases, you're kind of very, very locally managing wildlife. And so maybe that's a bit of a out on your, kind of dodging your question by saying I would do just a slightly different version of tech.
How dare you?
But I think I'd get to do even more field work, even more work outside, even less computer work, maybe. But yeah, final answer. We'll stick with that.
All right. And Savannah, you want to ask that last question?
What's one thing you wish more people understood about science or scientists?
that we're not always as smart as people think we are. Like we're I don't know, like
Take that back.
I think people get scared off like by the barrier to entry of and it's not just hey, like people in this field are so well educated and have these like really strong academic backgrounds. But I think like, I don't know, going back to, I think one of the first things you talked about, like the way that you communicate ideas is almost as like important as having the good research or having the good idea in the first place. And I don't know. I kind of wish we weren't seen as just like isolated from the rest of the world when so many of us are like very much working on applied research that really does affect the way people interact with their natural environment. In the case of our particular brand of science, but
I think even in some roles, like yours, for example, a lot of people don't even recognize that you might fall under the category of scientist.
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes, if you get too far into the management realm, it's like, oh, you're not pushing out papers every week or whatever, and it's definitely a different set of maybe different set of objectives or kind of day-to-day goals, but I would consider myself a scientist.
Well, we consider you one too.
Okay, thank God. Okay.
and I want to thank you, Caitlin, for taking the time today to meet with us and talk with us. It's been a real joy. I want to thank Savannah and David for choosing the paper that led us to find time to talk to you, because I think it was a really great starting point for this conversation. And I'll give my closing here of this has been StemPaths. I'm Thor Larson, and thanks for watching.